Hey, it's me, Big P, and I wanted to do a video quickly going over the build that I ran for BPL 11, which was Exsanguinate Mines Inquisitor. It's like kind of a weird off-the-wall build on a classic Ascendancy that I haven't gotten to play this league yet. And it was pretty solid. A lot of people were like, what the hell are you playing? When I came in to kill bosses for them, it's really kind of geared towards bossing, but it's a pretty flexible build and was a great starter. You know, kind of my favorite sort of build that technically doable on SSF with a different setup, but has some like just powerful, well, not necessarily powerful uniques, but like uniques you can kind of aim for in progression, and then a ceiling, because, you know, I'm using like random crap gear that we assembled here, and it was still really good, more than enough to you know, run some of the end game bosses. Going to run a oh, it is tier 14, I just noticed that, but it's still a boss with more life, just so you can get an idea of how much damage it's doing, and we need to witness it as well. And yeah, I just want to go over, kind of go over the experience of playing it and what I did during the BPL, which was pretty fun. Unfortunately, the team did come in last place. Lightning damage might be an issue here. We're not the tankiest build ever made. When you're a bosser, you kind of want to, you know, get as much damage as you can. And this definitely is kind of going low life, righteous fire, taking advantage of Eldritch Battery, Mind Over Matter, instead of actually using the almost 1k ES we have, and, you know, Petrified Blood, a lot of stuff, some layers here that are working with definite room for improvement. You know, damage was at the forefront once I wanted to start doing, you know, boss kills for people in BPL. If you never heard of BPL, it's like kind of like a mini race. And yeah, it's just a bunch of people working together to try and hit these weird goals. Super fun as always. Had a really great team. As you can see, it's not the greatest mapper, but you do have some sort of off-screen potential here, because you can throw the mines and pretty much detonate them if you keep the detonate on left click. But you know, I did try Reap a bit, but it seems as though Reap doesn't really have as many or as much reach, or as many maybe max Reaps that can be on the screen. Whereas, I don't know if you can tell, we can have up to 20 mines down in one detonation sequence. Press D, and it squirts a lot of them, shotgunning very quickly, and more importantly, aiming directly in map. It's the only thing that makes this you know, possible to be a good mapper. The rotation for maximizing single target damage is using the Hatred Blessing, which chunks our shield, and then a Bear Trap. It's best to throw all your mines, but honestly, there you go. We're doing some free shenanigans. Let's put down, just in case, because I'm actually a little scared of the lightning DJ. Voice is turned off, so he throws some Bear Traps. We're at 15. Okay, and there you go. And let's see. He's slowed and he's frozen. I don't even know if he's... Yeah, he didn't get an attack off. It's pretty solid, even with more life. Particularly because we are converting the damage to cold completely. As you can see, we have... well, I mean, the tooltip spikes up to, with everything up, like 125k around with my current setup. I'm going to upload the POB if you want to go over. There's a lot of moving parts in the build, including things like... what is it? High impact mine aura effect that I'm also further scaling for my Crucible tree. But you know, to put it together, you basically just, well, I mean, I leveled. I'm glad I did a practice leveling run with it, because it is a little bit of a funky build to put together. I have seen spell mines kind of go over in a number of different ways, and I saw this. There wasn't really much online as a reference, so, you know, all the more reason to do the this video myself. Okay, that's gonna be scary. I use this to run essences and metamorphs for my team, as well as any boss kills like I was going over. But, you know, even a lot of bossers you basically almost wouldn't want to take in a map unless you're absolutely forced to. I kind of found general progression with this really kind of smooth. In the axe, you know, as long as you start leveling an Exsanguinate gem early, before you kind of get into the mine setup. If you're doing like total SSF, I wouldn't do the setup, certainly not the cold convert setup, until you're more prepared. We'll go over the tree and I'll kind of go into why that is in a bit here. But yeah, that's, I mean, I don't want to stay too long in the map because, again, it's not a speed mapper. I kind of have my mapper. And honestly, I am going to respec out of this because I have another Inquisitor build I want to do, but let's go over this one first. Let's do skills first, and we'll talk about the Exsanguinate setup with Charged Mines, High Impact Mine, Minefield, Crit Damage, and Hypothermia support. This would be the last link, really, and Armor ES-based chest is really where you want to put this. Why Exsanguinate for mines? Well, life cost and reservation is easier to deal with than what you would probably have to go into with a more traditional spell in your mine setup. As you can see, you do reserve the life, which is, you know, not nothing. That's only if you have all 20 out, and it goes up and down as this detonation sequence goes. Up and down, and it does, like, you know, because you are freezing, we're actually scaling a lot of chill and freeze effect, as well as having that scale our damage a lot because we're using Heat Shiver, which is a pretty classic, you know, haven't nerfed it yet, and that's not tier 1 unique. I was able to get one through the team within the last like day or so, and you can buy these for 30 chaos. This would be the first real big point of the build, but yeah, I just want to go over this is how you set it up in the mines. And the 4 link, you can, you know, it's a little bit flexible, trap and mine damage or anything like that. I leveled with explosive trap, honestly, and I kind of forced the respec as soon as I got into Act 6, just because I wanted to get into the Exsanguinate, and you know, I did get a Hrimstar from the team pretty early as well, which was nice. And then let's go over stuff in the, well, yeah, okay, let's just go over all our auras. We have Petrified Blood, Determination, Skitterbots, and Bear Trap, all pretty self-explanatory and kind of, you know, usual suspects for things like this. For cast when damage taken, we have both our Molten Shell and Assassin's Mark. I probably should get rid of this, honestly, and like cast it somewhere, but our rotation kind of already has a Bear Trap. And casting the Divine Blessing Hatred that we have here, it's not terrible, and I definitely would use increase. I was using it as a 3-link without increased duration, and it goes from like 11 seconds, which is okay, but it almost doubles it. And also I would turn on the aura tooltip up here so you can see exactly when you'll need to do it, because we are Eldritch Battery. It's not like it recovers pretty much immediately because of Inquisitor and how that works, but the you know, it does chunk you and does bring down your effective hit pool, which can be problematic in maps, a little tricky. You get an ignite or another damage over time on you, you know, it can be problematic. We're also running Herald of Purity to buff damage, Righteous Fire once you can get away with it to kind of force us down to low life consistently, as well as the 39% more spell damage buff. And then Flame Dash is our movement skill. You don't really need anything like Arcane Surge on it or anything like that. Cast speed doesn't matter, spell buff doesn't matter. And we're reserving just Precision and Vitality with Arrogance, because I do have some mana reservation here on the chest and elsewhere. You can run it there, but then you're over. Well, see, the problem there is now I'm reserving with Defiance Banner. That would be like down here, and then we'd have like 1k life, which isn't the effective hit pool that it seems to be because of Petrified Blood, but it's still low. It's already bad enough that we're getting to the point where 20 mines, which is what you'll ideally have set up for bossing, brings us below that you know, 2k mark for the Petrified Blood, which works a little different, but you know, it's fine. And yeah, this is you could link these maybe if you have the life reservation mastery, increased life reservation efficiency of skills, but kind of went into all the reservation we can. We can go down here if we got a few more points, but I'm not really sure if that's worth it. You know, we're going to take a look at the tree after. Although, you know, I think that's all the skill gems. And the gear, let's go over the gear real quick and then we'll go into the tree, because the gear is more about, it's kind of centered around 3 uniques that you can kind of build into, and is kind of flexible on its own, to be honest. Cold conversion is only because I'm Inquisitor. There's probably other ways you can do this build. Scaling the dot portion might be a little tricky, like there's probably obviously a Shadow Saboteur version, although Saboteur is kind of weirdly not great for traps and mines now with some weird ways. Maybe Elementalist, I don't know. With Inquisitor, because you're converting to cold, you get to take, well, obviously Righteous Providence gives you a bunch of crit, but then Inevitable Judgment lets you ignore elemental resistances of any element, which goes nicely with the Heat Shiver, because, you know, before I got the Heat Shiver, the build was fine, but this really kicks it up into the stratosphere. This doesn't show up on like tooltip or anything like that. And just is crazy. It builds a lot of damage, and we are freezing bosses, especially because of this cluster here. Increased freeze duration, and just flat chance to freeze, as well as enemies permanently take 5% increased damage for each second they've ever been frozen by you. Well, it's such a mouthful. I love the Path of Exile nodes, the way they they kind of are just a fun mouthful. So up to 50% more damage if they've been frozen for 10 full seconds, but they're probably dead by then. You could also scale some chill and cold effect here, but I don't really see many people taking it. Not really sure why, but you know, I was just following kind of a rough idea of some trees on PoE Ninja. And yeah, there's probably a better way to do this. Probably you can incorporate a cluster jewel here and drop maybe like some of this stuff here, but there's a lot of really good stuff here. You know, 2 additional mines, effective non-damaging ailments, and duration of elemental ailments is actually huge. And of course a little bit of crit, which is kind of overkill. You get to take the mine stuff. The first 2 of the masteries are applying increased damage, and then also reducing damage. You know, these are both just very powerful in their own right. And then we have the increased effect of auras from mines. I'm going to go over high impact mine. Each mine from supported skills applies a 2% chance to deal double damage to hits against enemies near it, up to a maximum of 100%. I believe that's what this aura is. So 20 times what was it, like 2%, so it's like 40%, but then we're scaling like effect both on the tree and on my Crucible node here. Reduced area of effect doesn't matter. We're manually detonating a skill that doesn't have an area of effect tag, but increased effective auras for mines. Again, don't really know if, you know, this is doing anything, but I'll take it for now. And that's really the only thing that like a Crucible thing would matter for. I'm sorry, I kind of went all over the place here. But the uniques, in order, I would prioritize them, or of course just Rimsar, slap them on, and now your physical damage spell is 100% cold damage. Really nice. Worth noting, you do not scale damage over time. This is hit based. Do not try and scale dot multi, especially once you've converted to cold. While you're leveling, if you haven't converted to your physical damage, totally fine, totally valid. You might even want to use like curses like vulnerability instead, or something like that, to increase physical damage taken and stuff like that. But as of right now, we're fully crit, fully cold. Do not scale your dot, please. You need to understand how that works, unless you get the fire convert Crucible thing, but I'm not talking about that. And now the second piece is an old favorite of mine that I haven't run since like old RF, back when it was like Berserker or something, is Rise of the Phoenix, which is buffed to give you move speed on low life, chance to avoid being ignited on low life, fire res, and +5, just a bunch of regen, ES, and armor. We like everything on here. It's quite nice. We are running RF. Doesn't really clear because we don't have a huge life pool. We're not scaling dot multi or any multi. Do not scale that multi, I told you. But it's just more of a nice defensive shield. Obviously, you can probably improve on this with huge budget, but for like a 1-2C item that you can aim for in a trade league to replicate some, you know, just very strong interactions with all the setup that I have here, go for it. And then finally, of course, the Heat Shiver, doing very little besides a bit of res and a lot of damage. If you have not tried Heat Shiver since did it get reworked or just set up differently? I don't know. If there's anybody who can abuse this to the full potential, it's Inquisitor. Your cold damage dealing extra fire damage. When it's critting, it is penetrating full resistance. Both those 2 final lines are representing hundreds of thousands of damage in our build, if not millions. You know, like we might be like, I mean, gain 100% of cold as extra fire is basically doubling your damage against frozen enemies. You know, it's technically a little different, but that's basically what it is. And then luckily the rest of the gear, pretty terrible. This is actually a decent, I think, was this crafted with an essence? No, I was given this by a crafter that was looking for something. Rune daggers have a nice implicit to increase global crit because you do want to be critting as much as you can. I don't think I'm technically crit cap. I was running Frost Shield. There's a bit of gem slot flexibility, especially if you're not into using the Hatred, Inspiration, Divine Blessing setup here. But it does represent, like, yeah, I mean, it's like almost doubling tooltip DPS, which is, you know, represented by a lot more because of like the heat shiver interaction. So I definitely would look into critting, and I it's not that bad for something that the cast time is extremely quick. It's like less than half a second, and the damage it represents is huge. But you know, there's a lot of setups. You can be more flexible with this. You can go full life, full hybrid ES setup and not do the low life thing. But then you might have to worry about, you know, your mana costs in other areas, triggering, you know, cast and damage taken stuff. I didn't want to. That's why we went EB Mom. Definitely takes a little bit off our effective hit pool, but for usability, it's much better. And I like it. And of course, we get to go like pain attunement and stuff like that, which represents, like, if we refund this, yeah, that brings down, that's like a quarter of our damage pretty much. So if not a little bit more. So yeah, definitely nice to have. Everything else is pretty terrible. This is just Dex is definitely an issue with the gear, especially once you start. I can't even level this precision that much more. Hatred, obviously, you're going to want level 20. Hypothermia, you're going to want level 20. Bear Trap doesn't really matter. Precision does matter a little bit. I probably should crank this a bit more, although I can't really. I even with this 30 Dex Note, again, this was kind of in a rushed state of putting builds together in the weekend. I mean, I'm running like this, which gives us 17% attributes and stuff. Not a lot of huge life rolls on a lot of gear. I mean, we're missing it on on the gloves and the slot here. I'm actually even missing it here, but that means that we can do the increased life if there's no life modifiers on equipped body armor, so it gives you a bit of flexibility. Overall, I really recommend this build because it is flexible. Like, for example, using a nice rustic sash, that global physical damage implicit. You know, it's just like if you have a nice decent base, you can just craft onto this whatever resistances you need. I think I was at, yeah, this was just like tier 1 life that dropped for me, and I could use this. I was keeping it open to keep it flexible. Again, boots, another slot that can get much better. Notably, the only place we can get Eldritch implicits, and I kind of got some really solid ones here. I was just rolling my own currency that dropped. Gain Fizz's extra fire is pretty rad, and then move speed. These are 35 move speed boots. What's up? Not bad for a one weekend event. Chaos res was an issue. I only got this on the last day. I think we're still a negative 29, and then even with our chaos flask up, not great. Probably should be going into, no, I do have Soul Shikari, but I don't know, not great overall. But maybe needs to go into Aracali, although Brine King is how we're getting rid of Frozen and Chill. If we could get a Storm Shroud in the build with 100% shock avoidance, maybe through Tempest Shield, if you want to reserve that in your life, you know, again, a lot of different ways to be flexible with this build. This is just a setup I have that you can refer to. And what else? I mean, as far as crafting a higher tier weapon, I imagine the Hatred effect weapon, the thing you can get on Veritania would be much better. Obviously, +1 physical spell skill gems is just so huge. Luckily, the alt quality skill effect duration does not matter for our build, so I was able to get my own level 21 gem just by volleying level 20s here. Pretty good stuff. The flasks are, I'll just mouse over them quick, do what you want with them. Use Granite before you have a decent setup and before you swap to Determination. I was leveling with Purity of Elements, so I would definitely look into that. Maybe phasing or something if you're really getting kind of caught up. You know, we're not gonna be, you could go into suppression maybe, but tree's already kind of spread out. We're using an old favorite and Series Promise I haven't used in, well, pretty much years, pretty much since they nerfed flasks. And I completely forgot. I mean, it's a perfect roll on the gain Fizz and Elemental as extra chaos, which is super nice for a conversion build. Represents a ton more damage, but unfortunately chaos damage leeches as life. Your mines don't leech for you. I was really hoping that this would be a way to get leech, and not really a way to get leech from your mines into this build, unfortunately. But still a lot of damage. We need a Chaos Flask because that was what we're scared of. We know our life pool is kind of iffy. You can definitely get that on gear, though. I think nice Amethyst rings would probably be in order here. And then again, like Chaos Resistance on a belt or boots, things like that. A lot of room for investment in this build, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for something that maybe you can league start with a simple setup, simple budget, and you just want to, you know, blast your bosses early, because bossing is kind of important as your first step for setting up your Atlas. You know, getting your first 2 Watchstones, and honestly maybe even your Maven and Uber Elder does enough damage where you'll be freezing bosses that you don't think you should. I'm freezing like Metamorphs and like 6 Essence monsters with this setup, and that's without having like a great, you know, I mean, maybe there's a staff version as well, or like a super crazy, I know spell bows are kind of pretty popular too. But yeah, I just wanted to go over what I did with the setup because I just had so much fun. I didn't really stream as much as I wanted to, so I did want to just put a pin in this and you know, have a reference for it on the channel, because I might run this as my starter next league, but who knows. I mean, next league might be PoE too, right? So let me know what you think. Let me know what if you've tried something like this, like Inquisitor mines or other trap miners that aren't Saboteur. I've been meaning to do this for a while and I'm super pleased, and I hope you like the build. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.